Yes, it is I, your humble host, Bill Hatch, the third, coming to you live from the palatial home studios of Bald Spots Productions here in the beautiful city of Santa Ana, California. Joining me in studio, as per the usual, is my friend, my brother in Christ, the disembodied voice of Rennie.
Waka 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 with the Lord, I love you all.
And joining us from a more than acceptable safe social distance are my guests for this evening, Jennifer Lieberman. How you doing, Jennifer?
I'm fabulous, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. And Freddy Cruz. How you doing, Freddy?
It is. Apparently, I need a sip of water. I choked on my spit.
Have
I'm
another
so excited
cigarette.
to be here.
Have
I
another
choked on
smoke.
myself. It's not a cigarette. It's not a cigarette or joint. And it's not the Rona.
Oh no, we're all gonna catch the Rona. Oh, and there's my other sidekick Goose. Sorry, we've got a little dog who has a little cough, and it sounds like a goose honking.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, but it's actually that his airway is constricted, so not really a great thing.
No, poor thing.
No, he's a little toy chihuahua named Scooby. But
Oh.
yeah, he has medication he's supposed to take. I'll give it to him after the show.
Mm-hmm.
So how's everybody doing? What's going on?
Ladies first, Jen.
Well, I guess things are kind of winding down. Like, it's December 1st, 2022. Like, does anyone else feel like this is very strange and surreal? Like, the year's almost over.
Yeah, it gets that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, it feels like my life is more than halfway over, which it is. I'm 47, but no, to your point, Jen, time really flies when you're having fun. I mean, it seems like it was just yesterday that I was in Atlanta with my family for spring break pre-COVID, and we were sipping
Wow.
sodas, all the different sodas of the world at the Coca-Cola headquarters. And now look, 3 years later, it's almost 4 years later. It's insane.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. It's, and time just feels like ever since the pandemic, the lockdown felt like forever.
Yeah.
And now it feels like we've been on fast forward ever since, things have been lifted. Or at least for me, I don't know about you guys.
No, absolutely. It seems like it was just yesterday. I mean, I'm serious. Like it really, it was March of 2020. We were in Hotlanta, and we get back, and then they shut down the livestock show and rodeo, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, and we're like, okay, I guess this is a real thing.
Yeah.
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 What about you, Bill?
Yeah, it was about the same. I miss the lack of traffic though. Being in Southern California, that was quite a treat to have being the only one out on the freeway going to wherever it was they needed to go. Now it's back to everybody going to the same place.
Totally. But what were you doing out of your house?
Flying in the face of convention and the wisdom of the sheeple. No,
Love it.
just usual stuff. Going to the grocery store or going to the gas station so I could have gas to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
They let you fill up your gas tank
Oh
over
yeah.
there?
Yep,
It's incredible.
Yeah, I'd go to the Costco and there'd be lines for oh my goodness, that was something that was crazy. Going to the Costco and seeing the line of people going out the front door, down the street, just so that people could go and get toilet paper.
Yeah. I took my mom to Costco a few times, and we'd go early because they had special senior hours early in the morning because seniors were at higher risk. So if you were accompanying a senior, you could get in with them. And, not that I had any need for Costco myself, but I take my mom, and it was nuts. Like, even at 6 a.m., there was already a lineup around the block.
It was insane.
Yeah, pretty
Yep.
insane.
Yeah, I can't believe.
Everyone.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say everybody finding the nearest convenient elderly person so they can go get their Costco on and stock up on
Yeah.
TP.
Exactly.
Still haven't figured out why
Exactly.
people had to go and hoard the toilet paper.
Hey, you never know. I mean, I personally am not much of a hoarder, except maybe of books and memes that are offensive. But I can empathize with the fear of not having paper for the nether
Mhm.
regions. I empathize with
Well,
that.
that's because we are not a bidet country.
that is very true. Oh my god.
But you
That
can
is
get your
very
You know, if we had more of those, toilet paper would be less of a concern.
true. Although you can get your bidet on at the Costco. They have them.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Okay, well, I should have gotten that instead of toilet paper.
Yeah. Okay.
Couldn't help myself. Couldn't help myself. Sorry.
That's all right. So Jennifer, tell me a little bit about the Year of the What.
Well, it's my debut novel, and it is a #1 Amazon bestseller. It has won 5 literary awards,
Nice.
which just kind of blows me away because this was a real failing to success story, failing my way to success. It was originally a one-woman show called Year of the Slut that I developed to try and get an agent and manager and work in showbiz. None of that really happened. Like in the movie La La Land, when Emma Stone does her one-woman show, nobody really showed up.
Mm-hmm.
I had more than one person in the audience because I had some friends come, but nobody from the industry came. But that was the first time I created a vehicle for myself. And I realized that there was something to creating my own opportunities. So that's kind of how it came about. And then gave up on the book several times, finally published it. The original title was censored, grappled with like how to deal. It's like, whoa, the internet loves porn, but they hate the word slut. I don't understand. So, because I was censored from all advertising on every platform I tried to advertise on,
Wow.
including Amazon, where the book was available, all social media. And yeah, so anyway, it's this really crazy story of turning a complete failure into a success. Yay, me.
What an amazing paradox, though. You can't even have the title of a freaking book yet. Cardi B can go and shake her half-naked body all over social media for people of all ages and unfortunately very young and impressionable minds to see. It's
Yeah,
insane.
the word slut is considered too offensive for any advertising. However, bots don't understand nuance and that it's a feminist piece deconstructing a word that's weaponized against young women.
Boom.
So it's a sex positive feminist piece. So yeah, it's just, it's kind of frustrating. And what was also frustrating is when I did it on stage, the title is what sold out shows. After the first incarnation of the show, I developed it and kept going with it for a couple of years. I had absolutely no problem buying ads in the Village Voice or Time Out New York. When I was doing the show in New York City, I ended up winning an Audience Choice Award. And I'm sure the Audience Choice Award is because of the title. It got butts in seats. Yeah. I had really great attendance level at the houses. So yeah, it's, and it's funny too, because I've been talking to some people in the film business about adapting the book into something theatrical for either film or television. And every single person I've had a meeting with has said, well, if we do it, we want to go back to the original title.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, I never wanted to change the title in the first place. But I was kind of at that crossroads of, that phrase, you can either be right or you can be happy.
Mm.
And it's like being right is keeping my title, and being happy is having a successful novel.
Right.
So if changing that one word was going to open the doors to give it a chance in the marketplace and give it a chance to get noticed, it was a sacrifice I was willing to make.
And the irony of ironies is, if and when this does turn into some kind of TV or film adaptation, back to the original.
Yeah, because the title is like, it's gold.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's definitely censorship is a big thing, and it's weird because it changes from year to year, and you'll get a particular rating on a movie that's violent but not sexual, and a different one that's sexual but not violent, and it'll change from year to year based on who's in the MPAA at the time, and or MPRA or whatever it's called, and and it's just ridiculous how it can change, and it's so subjective. It's it's just something else. And then of course you got like shadow banning going on the various platforms.
But getting but to comment on the sex versus the violence, it's amazing how in the West we are so okay with overt violence, whether it's TV or film. Like if you look at network television, a lot of the like legal shows or police shows and stuff like that, there's a lot of brutal violence or discussion of brutal violence on those shows, but God forbid there's anything that's a little sexually racy. Whereas in the UK and Australia, after I think it's like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, they even have nudity on their network shows. Like, the sexual stuff is way more accepted there, and they censor more of the violence. Right. So it's really interesting how, that's kind of reversed between here and Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
I wonder if that's not an empire thing.
Pardon?
I was just saying, I wonder if that's not an empire thing.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I mean, we are an empire, and we just love our war movies, and we just love. And I don't mean to take that into some sort of rabbit hole conspiracy theory. I'm just saying that
Yeah, but
it begs.
But England was an empire at one point too, so and they've had plenty of war. They've had more war more recently than we have, and in homes near you. Anyway, and so it's surprising that they wouldn't be okay with it because it was in their streets not all that long ago. Certain.
Well, also I think here it's more puritanical, whereas in the UK and Europe they see sex as something that's super natural and part of life, and it's not something that's considered like taboo or dirty. Like sure, if it's something super salacious, that's another story, but just it's part of their conversation. It's part of life over there. It's like, yes, everybody has sex. That's what makes the world go round. Where in the West, it's more of a taboo topic, and it's something that we try and suppress and hide.
Which is so strange to me because sex is way more natural as far as humanity, and it's far more necessary to the human condition because it's what perpetuates our species, as opposed to violence, because violence is so unnatural, even when it's in its purest form. And I say pure as in like in its most innocent form, like self-defense.
Or survival.
Or survival. It boggles the mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we went down a rabbit hole.
No,
Sorry.
that's okay. That's what this show does. Um,
Yeah.
so anyway, Freddie, ruined my Christmas.
I will ruin your Christmas with my third installment or my third standalone novel, Allow Me to Ruin Your Christmas, which follows two very unsavory characters who live in the Houston area. And it centers around a podcaster who is a retired radio person. I was asked if this is an autobiographical book. It is definitely not. Um, but yeah, so the podcaster is essentially busted in the college kid, the other character, busted in his house with his mom. And so the podcaster is no longer the favorite podcaster. And he really ends up not being the favorite podcaster when it turns out that homie had something to do with with the death of the guy's
Oh
father.
wow.
And so thus turns into a series of unfortunate events for, let's just say, everybody involved.
Ooh.
Sounds good.
And it's fun.
Wow.
It's told from first person POV, alternating chapters, and it was a wild ride.
I bet.
Where did you get the idea? How did you come up with that?
Um, I credit everything to my wife and her love of Hallmark Christmas movies.
Did you go postal because of watching so many?
Yeah, there may or may not have been some projection. Uh, hey, we all need to dance with our shadow, okay? I just dance with my shadow a little bit more than people who don't write books. I mean, hey, we as creatives, I'm sure you all dance with your shadow.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
you know, it's unfortunate that some people don't realize they have a shadow to begin with. Those are the ones you actually have to watch out for.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where that came from. And the working title wasn't the title didn't really come about until a few months ago. I had written the book. It was for the most part edited, and I still didn't know what to call it. And during an episode of one of my podcasts, I was talking to, of all people, a middle grade author, and she was asking me about my writing process and what I had working on, and I was telling her about the book, obviously, because that's what I was and still am working on. And she goes, "Oh, what's it called?" I go, "Oh, the working title is Allow Me to Ruin Your Christmas." And she started cracking up, and I'm like, "Okay, well, I guess it's no longer the working title." So let's roll with it, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were several other variations that just did not and do not measure up. So, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. How does one come up with a good title anyway? That's a toughie. You both got great titles.
Thank you. I had my title before I wrote my story.
Okay.
And that was so when I decided to change the title, it was such a challenge
Sure.
because I wrote the story based on the title. And you would be surprised how difficult it was. The new title, Year of the What, I only changed one word and it
Right.
rhymes with the original title, Year of the Slut. But I actually went through 50 other titles before I came up with Year of the What.
Jeez.
Yes, and I had friends helping me, and I was corresponding with some colleagues and fellow authors and people that had seen the play, and it was a more challenging task than one would assume.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I'm curious now. Of the 50 titles, did you use any synonyms for slut?
No, when I
Like,
first
you're the
launched,
skank?
that would have been, all of those would have been censored. So basically I was trying to go for something that was like a little more careful. And it's funny because somebody that was helping me with marketing for the original book came up with like the slogan, "More sex, less city." So on the original book cover, Year of the Slut, underneath the title, it said "More sex, less city." So at first I thought I was going to go with that as the title. And then I, nobody really liked it.
Oh,
I
And they
yeah.
like
didn't
it.
think I would, and some people thought like, oh, great, you're comparing it to Sex and the City. So, your audience will kind of already know, you can tap into that audience. And then just as many people who loved it said, oh no, that's a terrible idea. So it was a lot of soul searching, I guess.
Wow.
Yes, you should have gone with person of questionable year of the person with questionable morals.
But that's the thing, she doesn't have questionable morals. It's the whole idea is the character is redefining for herself what that word
Right.
means, because as much as that word is weaponized against women, I think women use it more against other women than men use it against women.
Okay. And it's definitely not.
I can
It's
see
definitely
that.
not a word that can be used against men, because you always have to say a male slut or a man slut or something like that, and it's always you don't just call a man a slut.
No, and also there's a totally different connotation for a
Right.
man. When a man is promiscuous, it's a status symbol for him. When a woman is promiscuous, it's something that's used to
Right.
degrade her. So, it has an inverse meaning for the different sexes. So it doesn't have the same impact when you're referring to a man as a slut.
Yep. And yeah, it always has to be compared to the woman.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah. Where to go? What made you want to explore this in the first place? What got you into the one woman play?
So, like I said, I was trying to get some acting work. I was looking for an agent. I was looking for a manager, trying to invite directors, producers, basically people who could hire me. And a woman that I had met at a creative workshop, her husband owned an agency in LA, and she suggested that I was, a good writer and a good actor, and that I should write myself a vehicle. And a one woman show is much easier to execute than a multi-person show, because then you have to hire other people. And it's much cheaper to do a showcase piece of a play than to raise money and put a film together. Because at that point in time, I had written several feature film screenplays, but they take hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to make. And I had a couple of short films, and one of my short films kept on falling through every time I would get a team together and get people interested. So a one woman show is contained. It's something that I can write by myself. I could rehearse by myself in my living room, which is where I started rehearsing it. And
it's a pretty cheap place to rehearse.
It's also
yeah.
Exactly. And it also was tailor made to showcase my range. Right. I played 10 different characters, and I wrote it in a way where there was comedic stuff, there was dramatic stuff, and it basically could showcase the entire gamut of what I could do in one little piece. So that's how I was encouraged to do a one woman show. I never in my life thought I would do a one woman show. I had produced a couple of friends' one woman shows prior to writing my own. And each friend that I helped, I was so in awe of their talent and their ability. And I just resolved like that I wasn't ever good enough to do something like that on my own. I didn't think I was capable of playing 10 characters and like snapping in and out of them, and being one and looking like this and then snapping into the other one and going like this to respond to them. Like I never, it wasn't something I ever thought I could do. And this woman just kind of pushed me, and she's like, look, you just got to LA, nobody knows who you are, you have to let people know you exist. And and I was like, God, I do. Like, I have to do something. Because you can be waiting around for somebody to give you a break forever. And that's why most people in show business don't really get where they want to go. It's when you start creating your own projects that you're giving yourself opportunities to let people know you're out there. So that was kind of the catalyst for me to start creating my own work. And to date, I've made several short films and a web series, and I'm gearing up to direct my first feature film. And I've got lots of stuff on the go, and I'm not waiting for anyone to give me anything. I'm just like, okay, I've got the tools, I've got the skills. I'm just going to do it myself.
Very cool.
You know, I'm still open to the opportunity of being hired. Like anyone out there, I'd love to be on your show. I'd love a sitcom. I'd love to be in other people's films and collaborate with other people. But I'm not going to let that stop me. Yeah. I'm not going to let the fact that those opportunities haven't presented themselves yet stop me.
I love that. And Bill, let me tell you, I had Jen on my podcast earlier this season, and when she says nobody will stop her, she means nobody will stop her. She can't even stop herself. She was talking about one day/night where she worked 16 straight hours as a creative. That is like otherworldly, intergalactic, interplanetary, something not of this universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Much respect.
For sure.
Well, I think when you're in the zone, but any of us, when we get in the zone with something, it's like the whole world falls away.
Yeah.
And, that's the only thing that kind of exists in that moment.
Yeah.
I need to tap into whatever you're having.
Called coffee.
Oh God.
It's my only vice left. I'm addicted to coffee. But the time you were talking about, I was editing for 16 hours. I didn't even get up for a glass of water or go to the bathroom. And it was the first project I filmed, and I was sitting in an editing room, and I only had my friends, access to my friend's studio for a certain amount of time. So I wasn't going to waste a minute. And I wasn't even drinking coffee back then.
You imagine if she was?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Would have done 2 films.
32 straight hours.
I've done 48.
Yeah, exactly.
I've actually done 48 hours working. Back when I was going to Cal Poly Pomona, I was in charge of the road slope committee for a couple of years. And one time we got so into the work that I didn't realize how much time had gone past, and there were energy drinks. Well, there weren't as many energy drinks. It was more soda and coffee than anything else. But yeah, and then by the time I realized what had happened, it was too late. It had already happened, and I couldn't get to sleep, and it was like I was so tired I couldn't sleep, and I was hallucinating. And yeah, yeah, I drove when I was driving home, and I swear I saw people running across the freeway. And it was like the middle of the night. There were no cars on the freeway. What it was is that there was a not an emergency vehicle, but one of those like a Caltrans or a work vehicle that had a flashing light, one of those rotating flashing lights, and the way it cast the shadow on the ground and wall, it made it. My mind interpreted it as people running across the freeway and jumping over the retaining wall. I was so freaked out.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, I of course finally did get to sleep, but yeah, I almost pulled something like that last night. I'm working on a website for someone, and that's business number 4. And I got caught up in doing it, and before I knew it, it was like 1:30 in the morning, and I'm like, I need to go home. I have a podcast to do in the morning.
It's funny though how when we're on a screen, whether we're writing or editing or doing some sort of graphic stuff or with a website, we can really get sucked in. But if it wasn't screen work, I don't think we could go that long.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, and let me tell you, to your point, I do audio production, and then obviously I edit my own
Mhm.
podcasts, and then I edit the video portions. And yes, you're right. You can get sucked in for hours at a time. My fiction writing, the last two books have been longhand, and it's impossible to go for more than an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes when you're
Mm.
writing. It's there's something different about the way your brain engages with your hand and
Mhm.
writing, like physically writing, as opposed to punching in uh, buttons on a keyboard. And there's a book that I've listened to the audiobook four different times. It's The Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler, and
Ooh.
he talks about flow state,
Okay.
and that's his whole thing that he does, because he had Lyme disease when he was in his 30s. He was bedridden. He was not functional for more than an hour. And he was suicidal until one day, one of his friends, and I think he was in California at the time, and I think he still is. But one of his friends was like, okay, get in, loser, we're going to go surfing. And so basically it was like she threw him into the beach and they went surfing, and he like he discovered what he was experiencing was flow state. And so he's like, oh my God, I need to engage this and figure out everything there is to know about accessing this state of mind. And so that's been his life's work for upwards of 20 years. There are entire books about it. He attributes Friedrich Nietzsche with being the first high performance psychologist, which is insane because, as you all know, Nietzsche was more than 100 years
Right.
ago when he was putting out his work. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I apologize for hijacking the
It's okay.
conversation. I'll leave you with one thing. He talks about, and this is mind blowing. He talks about there are two things: the human brain being less than 2% of your body
Hmm.
mass, but it consumes 25% of your
Right.
energy. And just hearing the two of you talk about this, you Jim with your 16 hours and you Bill with your 48 hours, and knowing that, and that was why I asked you in my previous interview, Jam, was like, hey, what was the next day like? Because you have to
Hmm.
recover from expending that kind of energy. And then you, Bill, talking about hallucinating, that had to have been, I'm curious as to whether or not that, because that had to have been the rest of your body telling you, yo, dude, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing to us? So yeah.
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 Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'm sorry. The other thing too was there's a neurochemical that oh gosh, now I'm butchering it. It's okay. So it's called anandamide, and it attaches itself to receptors in the brain the same way as HTC does in
Okay.
marijuana. So that's a lot of what he's trying to figure out, is how to tap into that
Mm.
so that you
Mm.
can access more flow. And you editing the video, Jen, and you with the website, or
Right.
all the things that you're working on, that you're able to do in just 2 hours, a significantly much larger percentage of work than somebody can accomplish in half of a traditional work week. And I'm done. This stuff excites me. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. Well,
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
no, no,
Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Bill.
You're the guest.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, like, I've written a couple of articles about writer's block
Mhm.
because I never have writer's block because I never try to write when I'm not inspired. And my whole, the point in the articles that I've written is about, like, 2 hours of inspired writing, you're going to get a better product than 2 weeks of forcing yourself when it's just not
Right.
there. And and I that doesn't mean, like, I think people should just wait for years and years and years on end, but I think the task is keeping yourself inspired.
Mhm.
It's not forcing yourself to write. It's or forcing yourself to do work that just isn't coming. It's forcing yourself to find ways to stay inspired, so the work, so that flow state does come more frequently.
Yeah.
Yep. And he talks about different hours. So he recommends waking up at 4:30 in the morning, and
There's a
or
4:30 in the morning.
yeah, right, exactly. And so he recommends
A lot of the gurus recommend 4:30 in the morning, and I'm just like, what time are you
yeah.
going to bed?
And I think that is because those are the hours when nobody's awake and nobody's emailing, nobody's hitting you up on Twitter or on social media, no one's texting you, or at least traditionally speaking, most of us work, even if we don't work a traditional 9 to 5, most of us are awake between the hours of, I don't know, for argument's sake, 6 and 11. So yeah, it makes sense that he would say, wake up at 4:30 in the morning, get your 90 to 120 minutes of uninterrupted, unadulterated flow work, your deep work, your he calls it your non-time. So basically it's your non-time when nobody is interrupting you. And yeah.
Yeah, and people that I have heard, I don't remember, exactly who I'm talking about right now, but they have said that, like, anything like after like 8 o'clock at night, it's not productive stuff. It's just it's like watching TV, or kind of, you're not most people aren't really working out at that time. You're not doing anything that's particularly productive. So they suggest to just go to bed instead of like wasting that time on stuff that's superfluous, and then use those hours to wake up earlier, and those will be productive hours in the morning, as opposed to completely non-productive hours in the nighttime.
Right. You're also not allowing yourself to recover because TV is sending off all those data waves into your brain. That gets into another part that he talks about, but it's like, sleep is a non-negotiable when it comes to people who are at a high performing level, which is why I guess what you were asking, well, when do these people go to bed? They have to go to bed. If they wake up at 4:30, they've got to go to bed at 8:30 because you
Mm-hmm.
need a minimum 7 hours of sleep to fully recoup. You need 7 to 8 hours, and that's like it's what a lot of people. Andrew Huberman's a very popular neuroscientist. He's been on Rogan. He's got his own YouTube channel, but he's got a huge following. He's out of Stanford. He talks about recovery. There's a Navy SEAL, Rich Deviney, who talks about the attributes for people to do all these different to succeed and whatnot. And so yeah, it's 7 to 8 hours, and these are all non-negotiables. They say that recovery is a grit skill because it's hard. It's hard to just lay in bed and try and fall asleep because the propensity, at least I don't know about the two of you, but for me it's like, well, crap, I can't sleep. Well, let me just check TikTok one more time.
Thank God I'm not on TikTok. Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not either.
You'd never sleep.
I don't want the Chinese government watching
Yeah.
me dance. So.
Yeah, exactly. But
Oh, that's
no,
a
but
whole other
it's
rabbit
true,
hole.
though.
Yeah.
It's true. You know, I totally agree with you. Lying in bed when you're not able to fall asleep, it's like you're so tempted to, like, if it's not TikTok, but get on your phone, check emails, read articles. And they say that is even worse because it does something to your brain waves that doesn't allow you to fall asleep. So
Yeah, it's the blue light. You notice they don't sell those blue blockers at the stores? Like you have to actually seek those out.
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
I've got a pair next to me.
My glasses, which aren't for reading, but for distance, they have the blue blocking. Actually, what's funny is that they have the blue filters in them, and the and Zenny Optical, where I got my glasses from, sent me a blue laser light to show me how great these things work. And
Oh,
Great selling point.
yeah, so I have a little blue laser now, laser pointer. I have a laser. Yes, a laser. But no, I find myself to be quite the opposite. Even if I do manage to get to bed and go to sleep at 8 in the evening, I still can't wake up at 4 or 8 or even 10 sometimes in the morning. I will literally sleep until 10 in the morning. It's just that's my nature, and whether I go to bed at 8 or at 2. Um, and I do my best work in the evening because it seems like I've finally gotten my brain revved up to the point where I can actually get some work done. But I'm just weird that way.
Yeah, well, no, I know a lot of creatives who work best at night. For me, I work best during daylight hours. You know, as soon as it starts to get dark, like I start shutting down. Um, so especially during the winter when the days are shorter, I'm usually up around 6:30 anyways. And as it gets, the days get shorter, I just make sure I maximize all the daylight hours that there are, because I really do struggle focusing once it gets dark outside.
So do you have dinner at 3 and then you're in bed by 5:30?
Well, not exactly that.
Early bird
but,
special.
I gotta go to bed.
exactly. I know. I'm gonna move to Del Boca.
My Denny's dinner at 2. Moon's over my hammy.
Boca del
No,
Vista.
I don't necessarily eat that early, but I do the intermittent fasting, not because I've been doing it since before I knew what intermittent fasting was. But growing up, my dad only ate one meal a day.
Wow.
He'd come home and he'd eat dinner. Like, he wouldn't eat all day. Um, and I wasn't really, when I was a child, we ate breakfast, but breakfast wasn't really a big thing in my house growing up. So, I usually eat my first meal around somewhere between noon and 2, and then I'll eat a second meal by 6 o'clock, and then I'm done. And
Yeah.
it's funny. It's not even about I was never conscious of this intermittent fasting thing until a few years ago when it became popular. But I just was never, ever, ever hungry in the mornings. Like, it was always a struggle to try and eat something before noon.
That's a great discipline if you can have it. I'm trying to work to where I can, because I've heard more than one doctor from different fields. So back to Huberman, a neuroscientist. I've got my media company, which focuses on podcast production. So one of my clients, it's a breast care center. And so the surgeon slash co-founder, she talks about, and this is, I think she's pushing her mid 70s, maybe early 80s. So she talks about waking up at 3:30, getting on the elliptical and not eating. This is someone who wakes up really early and not eating until noon. So you got neuroscientist, a breast care surgeon, both saying both. Oh, and then I remember reading something in a book about I think it was General Stanley McChrystal, how he wakes up at 4 something, goes to the gym, comes home, showers, goes to work, and he doesn't eat until 12 noon. So it's like there's got to be something to that. And more power to your dad for not eating until dinner time. That is crazy discipline.
Yeah, like, he'd have coffee, like black coffee.
Yeah.
But yeah, he wouldn't eat. And, but also, this is a very new concept, like 3 meals a day. My grandfather, my dad's father, came from Poland to Canada, grew up during the Depression, and he said that, yeah, they would generally just eat kind of one meal a day, and they'd have some sort of hot drink in the morning, and then maybe a piece of bread with schmaltz, which is like the Yiddish word for chicken fat. Because people would have like a jar of some sort of chicken fat or lard, not in a Jewish house, but these were like just staples that people had back then. So just like a piece of bread with like some sort of layer of fat on it, and then dinner, which would be some sort of soup or stew. And it's a very new concept. even refrigeration. Nobody had refrigerators back then in the 1920s. So, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the amount of, ailments and illnesses have like skyrocketed since we've been eating way more than we need to. And a lot of studies now are they're saying like if you're over 30, you really don't need more than 2 meals a day. And, we've never had food as accessible as it is to us now. And, like up until maybe, I don't know, 50, 60 years ago, nobody was eating as much. Even portion sizes weren't as large as they are. And there's something to be said for it's okay to be hungry. Like we don't want to be starving and emaciated, but our body can fully function on 1 meal a day. And it can fully function with having a couple of fast days a month where you don't eat anything and you just have some water or tea or something like that. Because in the history of mankind, we would go days and days without food when we were hunter gatherers, and our body is made for that. And I think it's like overeating. That's one of like the biggest detriments of our society. And I'm not even talking about obesity. I'm talking about just eating too much that our body doesn't know what to do with it.
All right, hold on. You know what? You must have known that I'm a sucker for a good Domino's binge, and I just take offense to that. Kidding aside, no, you make a really good point though. Yeah, it seems like everything now, as far as like health and wellness, or lack of health and lack of wellness, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, all of these things, arthritis, it all centers around what you put in. There was this thing I saw. There was a meme on LinkedIn. This is where we are, y'all. A meme on LinkedIn, which was like, eat your food as medicine before you eat medicine as food. And I'm like, holy crap. Does that not make sense? Or what? My mind was blown because it's so simple, but it's so true. But yeah, it's yeah, don't get me started. Because food is so delicious.
Food is delicious.
And also everything revolves around food, right?
Yes.
All of our holidays, all of our gatherings, when you meet friends, when you go out, everything revolves around food.
Yeah.
Like I try, when I meet up with friends, I try to meet for a walk. That's my favorite thing, and try really hard not to let it turn into a meal afterwards. But I love meeting people for a walk. I love going to a museum or a gallery, things like that we're not sitting down and shoveling food into our faces.
There's someone I had spoken with. She's like a physical fitness coach, and she was talking about oh gosh, I was preparing for her interview and I was listening to a conversation she had with, I don't know if y'all watch Food Network. There's someone her name was the hungry chef, or the hungry girl, or the hangry girl. I forget what her name is, but they were talking about food waste and yada yada yada. And she said something to the effect of, well, you're afraid of wasting food and putting it in the trash, but you're treating your body as a garbage can if you're just gonna shovel everything on your plate into your mouth. And this, as I'm listening to this podcast and making me a 3-egg white soy rizo taco topped with cheese and 3 tortillas, and I'm like, all right, damn it, okay, I'm throwing one of them away.
No, that's just kind of how I was raised. Was you finish everything on your plate, and yeah.
Oh yeah, we're coerced into finishing.
Yep. If you don't eat your pudding, how can you have any? Or if you don't eat your meat, you can't have any pudding.
Exactly, but I also think that's because our grandparents were Depression era, and then they raised our parents, and it's habits that are passed down generationally. And there's been some interesting studies over the past few years where they've been realizing that a lot of disorders that they thought were genetic were not actually genetic. It's because diet is passed down through our family, and a lot of times we tend to eat things that we were raised with, and those were the things our parents were raised with. So food is such a huge part of our health. What we eat, what we don't eat, how much we eat, all of that stuff. And it's just really fascinating now. All these studies are coming out, confirming stuff that to me just seemed like common sense.
Yeah, but eating is tied with so many things, like you were saying. But even going back to ancient times, meals and eating were a way of bringing people together. You didn't eat with your enemies. You ate with the people you wanted to be your friends, your family, close to you, and that's still true.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the whole rigmarole. Not to get into politics on this particular conversation, but look at the whole rigmarole going over with Trump having that white nationalist over for dinner. It's like, it's a big deal because he was eating with this guy, not because of anything else. And because that's how we look at eating. When you eat together, there's a camaraderie there, and and so yeah, food is very much tied to a lot of our norms.
Yeah. And since I've become vegan, I've been vegan for 8 years now. And it's interesting because I try to avoid making things around food because most people in my family are not vegan. And, for example, my dad, if it's not meat, it's not a meal. And,
In his defense, he only ate once a day.
Yeah.
He needs his meat.
Exactly. And that's a thing. And it's like, he's not interested in going to like the vegan especially for his one meal a day. He doesn't want to go to a vegan restaurant where he's not going to enjoy himself. And for me, it's like, I don't want to go to a steakhouse. It's just not appealing. But to have family gatherings and stuff, anytime we celebrate a birthday or an anniversary or whatever, it's all about like, let's go for dinner here, let's go for dinner there. And I'm like struggling to try and find some other things we can do that aren't going for dinner.
No, I've tried.
When you go out,
I've tried being vegan, but I love all of God's tasty critters. So that just isn't gonna be a thing. Short periods. I can do it for short periods.
I never. It wasn't an intention. It was it just happened that way.
I lasted 2 weeks. My daughter's still vegan. I don't know how she does it, but yeah.
Well, the thing is, once you see things that you cannot unsee, it's no longer a choice.
Oh no, I've seen plenty of pictures.
Yeah.
I still like pork.
I'm not talking about pictures.
Oh.
If you see enough disturbing footage, it's not even a choice anymore. You just kind of your brain just kind of shuts that out and it's like, nope.
Yeah, and that's why my daughter is in all seriousness, that's exactly what my daughter, she's like, well, how can you do that? How can you justify it? I'm like, because it tastes good. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I love it. I love that you're able to do that, and you hold to your convictions, and that you plan your day around that. And I think it's really cool. I've never heard it framed that way, that instead of just instead of a straight, yeah, I'm not going to be able to make it to dinner, guys. It's, hey, how about we go to a museum? How about we go to a gallery or something? Or how about we meet up for a walk? I think that is really, really, really cool. I've never heard it put that way. I'm going to tell my daughter.
Yeah, that's actually, those are my favorite things to do. And I'm also like, I'm an active person. I'd rather be like standing up, doing something, and not everybody's into like doing an activity. So, but walking, everybody can walk, or not everybody. Yeah. Sorry, that was not a mindful comment, but even if people can't walk, they can still go for a walk, so to speak.
Go for a drag.
And or a roll, or go to a gallery. And there are lots of other things that you can enjoy that aren't necessarily sitting down and eating.
So you say gallery, and I'm
Amen.
thinking wine and cheese.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. We're going for a drink. Like, I'm not a big drinker. I don't enjoy drinking. Like, I never want to go for a drink. To me, that sounds like the worst thing ever.
Once you hit your late 40s, it just feels different in the morning. And to your point, it the next day, it's just, to me, it's not worth it. I used to be slightly heavier than social drinker, and back in my day, and just over the past few years, actually, it took scaring somebody straight really does work depending on the circumstance. I saw there was a couple of years ago. This was, I think, in the heat of the pandemic. Some study it came out where alcohol poses a significantly higher risk of cancer, of heart, of stroke, and whatnot. And I'm like, all right, that's enough for me. Even if you're a moderate drinker, okay. No, not worth it. Plus the hangover. I mean, it's like I used to, I would go through maybe a small bottle of Maker's Mark, and I love whiskey. I'd go through a small bottle of Maker's Mark maybe once every like month and a half or so. So it wasn't a lot of booze. It just wasn't. It was something to take the edge off, and something to watch American Horror Story with after everybody's in bed. And no big deal. I wasn't, taking shots at a bar or anything. But yeah, you start to realize then it's the next morning, you want to go running and you feel like ass. And I'm like, all right, what am I doing? I got a headache. I'm on the trail. I hate everybody. I shouldn't feel this way. It's nature. They're dogs and squirrels and animals. We live across from a farm. I like cows. They're pretty. Why do I feel like I hate the world? Oh, it's because you were drinking last night.
Yeah.
See, I enjoy an adult beverage on occasion, but I've never been a heavy drinker. But but I've never gotten the hangover. I got a coffee hangover yesterday. That was the weirdest thing. Yeah, because I hadn't really eaten all day, and I'd been living on coffee. And the next morning, it was like everything was working poorly. And
Did you get the shakes? Were you like all shaky and?
I didn't get the shakes. It was mostly nausea and just a general malaise. Nothing seemed good. Nothing was right. It was just awful. And definitely different from a whiskey hangover. But
I just like that you said malaise, the way I like that Jen said superfluous. And so now I feel like I should drop a really cool word like histrionic or something.
histrionic.
Ooh, that's a great one.
That's an anti-woman word.
Histrionic.
The histrionics, it comes from the same place as hysterectomy. Comes from the same word family. It was believed at one point that a woman's uterus could literally move around in her body, and when it ended up in a bad spot, that was why she got all emotional and moody or what have you.
Get out.
Yes.
Yeah, and hysterical.
Hysterical.
Hysterical also. Women in the Victorian era, women suffered from hysteria.
Yep.
Because it was believed that no women were doctors at this point, so they weren't familiar with female anatomy. And it was believed that women didn't have any pleasure during sex, but women were going to the doctor to be relieved of their hysteria through manual stimulation. And that's how a doctor invented the vibrator, because his hands were getting tired from relieving all of these women in his waiting room from their hysteria. But basically he was just giving them orgasms, but he didn't know that.
Right. Yeah. Some of the early feminine devices are quite scary looking, though. Oh.
Yeah, and they were actually like all over the counter, Sears catalog stuff. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until like the early 1900s when a few women were admitted into medical school that it was realized that these things were giving women sexual pleasure.
Mhm.
And then they all disappeared from the mainstream
Yeah. Because we
and
can't have that.
became, subversive. Yeah, it's a fascinating history,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
The history of
I love
hysteria.
strange history.
Okay,
but-
hold. All right, is there a book or an article that either one or both of you can recommend? Because I've got to read.
There's a movie with
Yeah.
Maggie Gyllenhaal about it.
Oh, shut the front door. What?
I think it was a book first.
Okay, what?
But yeah, just look up, just Google hysteria.
Yeah.
And you'll
Okay.
find so much literature
All right.
on it.
I was hoping you wouldn't say just Google vibrator and Maggie
You
Gyllenhaal.
might want you might want to
No,
use
it's called hysteria.
you might want to use DuckDuckGo instead of Google. That way they won't track what you're searching for.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
do be
I'm
careful
looking at-
about your about
okay.
what words you use.
2011. There it is. I'm gonna watch it now. All right.
Put it on your Netflix queue.
Yeah.
It's on my list.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy,
Yeah.
That's
but-
actually crazier in a better way than crazier in a terrible way, like what what was it, the Kellogg's family, when
Yeah.
they had that compound up north and they used to do all these experiments, like staple the men's parts together and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen The Road to Wellville? With
Wellville, no.
the Road to Wellville, it's Matthew Broderick and what's his name? Played Hannibal Lecter. Anthony Hopkins. Yeah. Yeah, it's all about the sanatorium where Kellogg worked, and the invention of cornflakes and all of that kind of stuff.
I
Well,
blame
didn't
him
they
for being
advertise-
breakfast.
Sorry, didn't they advertise back in the day that eating cornflakes would like help prevent you from like masturbating
Yes.
or something?
Yes, it
Wasn't
was
that one
supposed.
of their
it-
slogans?
It was supposed to help you control your sexual desires and all of that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Kellogg, not WK, the other Kellogg brother, the doctor. Dr. Kellogg was married, but they did not have relations. They didn't have sex, and all their children were adopted. Yeah, they were. I believe they were lacto-ovo vegetarians because they were Seventh-day Adventists. And
Okay, but that would make someone cuckoo bananas. Like, look what happened. All these women went hysterical because they
Yeah.
needed to get some.
right,
Like.
yeah, he was a little crazy.
Like,
He was a little
just
crazy.
kind of coming full circle, like we were talking about at the beginning, sex is the most natural thing on earth. It is the number one thing every cell in our body is driving us towards, because it drives us towards survival, which
Right.
is procreation.
Mhm.
And it's so fascinating to me how so many religions and institutions and scholars, were trying to like force us to suppress our nature.
Mhm.
And it's just so crazy to me. It's absolutely mind-boggling.
Well, some of our nature has to be suppressed for the betterment of the species. We're human beings are naturally selfish, and only do things that seem best and right to them at that moment. In ethical
But that's
circles,
not a biological function. But
it's
that's not a
a
biological
it's a
function.
mental function. It is.
Yeah, but
it's
I'm
a survival
talking about
function.
physical biology.
Yeah, but yeah. So, but we do
and
have
yes,
to.
most of us are selfish,
yeah.
but it is in our self-interest to be part of a community, because it's much easier to be part of a family and a community than it is to be on our own.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, we're definitely
I
not
understand what
designed
you're
to be.
saying.
We're definitely not designed to be alone. That's for sure.
No, exactly. So as much as, everybody, of course, everybody acts in their own self-interest, but it is in our self-interest to get along with other people.
Right.
because nobody can survive as a lone wolf.
Right.
Period.
Yeah, but
From
we
an
have to
evolutionary
we have to
standpoint,
learn
you
that.
had to fit with the herd.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, we tend to have to learn that though, because we start out as as infants. We start out as me, and that's just how we survive at that point, and we have to learn
Yeah,
that.
because we can't survive otherwise.
Right, we can't survive
we're
otherwise.
completely dependent
Right.
on adults, and other humans caring for us.
Yeah. And we have to learn that the rising tide lifts all boats, so that our neighbor's good is our own good.
Exactly.
To become oh, what's the term for it? I remember egoism is the term in ethics for a self-centered person, for a self-centered thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have other things going on all of a sudden. Where was I? Yeah, the egoism is the right. Egoism is the term in ethics for a person who believes only in their own self-interest. Enlightened egoism. That's when you realize that the person next to you, that their good is actually your good too. And that's what the jump that we have to make. Is going from the me that's left over from infancy, and to the you too idea.
And then there's like almost an inverse of that, in which case there's a lot of me because there's hyper collectivist herd mentality.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah.
What's up?
Yep.
Oh,
I hear the typing.
yes, and I see the notes. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, we can wrap up. Oh no, your class already started?
Yeah. I told you when I emailed you. that
I
had a
forgot.
class
I
at 2:00.
completely forgot about that. Yeah, we
all
tend to
good.
get carried away. Okay.
No, it's all good. I can be a few minutes late. It's not gonna end the world.
Yes, it will. The world's gonna end. It's the end of the world as we know it. But I feel fine. Okay. Let's see. Last chance at promos. The Year of the What is the book. Yearofthewhat.com.
And you can find it on Amazon, or you can go to my website, yearofthewhat.com, and it's available at any bookstore. They'll order it for you. It's not physically in every bookstore in the world yet, but hopefully one day. And if you want to follow me on social media, my handle is @IamJenLieberman on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm not on any other ones.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Well, it was a pleasure to have you. The conversation was definitely, shall we say, stimulating.
Yes, thank you, Bill. Thank you, Freddie. This was so much fun.
thank you. Yeah, I'm putting my ask out there that when this becomes a some sort of series or movie, I want to be an extra. You don't have to answer me now. You don't have to answer me now. I'm just saying I'm putting my hat in the ring. I'm nominating myself, and if you, the director / executive producer of Year of the Slut, does get made, I am at your service. I will cover all of my travel expenses as well.
Okay, well, thank you. We will definitely put you on the list. I can tell you I will not be the director. I might get an executive producer credit, but I will definitely. Bill, you're welcome to come on board also.
Yeah, I'll put my man.
Will that into the universe.
I'll put my man slut on.
All right.
Exactly.
Great,
We
y'all.
always need some male sluts in the background.
Oh Lord.
All right, and then Freddie, allow me to ruin your Christmas.
Yes, just go to ruinmychristmas.com.
Ruinmychristmas.com.
I made it easy for you.
That is pretty darn easy, and I'll have both links in the description of the show so that people can find it nice and easy. We'll make it so simple you won't be able to ignore it.
Awesome.
All right. Before everybody goes their separate ways, do you find people have anything? Do you find people have anything to say to the nice people? Anything? Any final parting words?
Don't be afraid to fail, because when you fail enough, it'll lead you to success.
Okay, fail forward.
Exactly.
Yep. Freddie?
Can we curse or no?
Sure, why not?
Break shit.
Okay.
Oh, I love that.
Just do it. Just get out there and do not refuse to be ignored.
Okay.
Go out there.
Don't be ignored. Work into the wee hours of the morning.
Yes.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you both for being on. It'd be a pleasure to have either or both of you on a show again.
Thank you for the invite.
We'd love to. Well, have an amazing December Christmas season, everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Don't let Christmas ruin your season, or your season ruin your Christmas.
Exactly.
Oh, God. All right, y'all.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right, everybody be safe out there. Remember to wash your hands and stay tuned for the closing credits.
Awesome.
You can leave.
All right.
Go away now.
Thanks. It's great to see you, Jen. All right, good
You
to see you,
too,
It was
Bill.
nice to meet you both.
Bye, Bill.
Thanks.
Very nice to meet you both.
And thank you all for tuning in. This has been a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. I'd like to thank my producer, my beloved mother, Eileen Hatch. I, of course, am your humble host. I'd like to thank my special guests, Freddy Cruz and Jennifer Lieberman. They were wonderful. Support the show if you feel so led over on patreon.com at Bald Spots Pro. That's the name of the production company. It's more of a vanity label than anything else. But don't you dare miss YWL Online, normally on Tuesdays and Saturdays, though I have to admit I'm a little behind on posting. YWL Online is on Facebook. Tune in next time for, oh, doggone it. It went by too fast. I had to go and speak. Okay. Don't you dare miss YWL Online. Tune in next time for Joseph Giampapa and Una Hartzell-Baird. That'll be an interesting conversation. Please be sure to like, comment, and share to stay informed. Subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do to kick that algorithm into gear and get us to more people. That's the whole point of this, is that we get out to as many people as possible. And you can find us on Facebook as Not Quite After Midnight. We're also on YouTube as Bald Spots Pro, and wherever fine podcasts are sold. So get you going. And once again, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in, and have yourselves a wonderful whenever. Bye.